I suppose I could start with the year that I was born, November 6, 1945, in a small town called Crisfield, Maryland. Crisfield was known as the seafood capital of the world, and so I was introduced to seafood at a very early age. Here she is, my grandmother, and this is her sister beside her. I was raised by my grandmother, and it was she who introduced me to the crabbing industry. I remember as a child coming home from school, walking downtown to check on her to see what she was doing, and she always had a tub full of crab claws for me to crack once I arrived. I used to be upset with her because I thought I was working for her. And that was due to the fact that she would take the money that I had earned every week and give me about 50 cents. And then I realized that every cent that I had earned was given back to me at the beginning of the school year so that I could purchase my clothes, purchase school books, everything that I would need to go to school with. And it was because of her that I learned how to be, as my son would say, frugal. That's me right there. This is my Aunt Marie that I talked about, who was shortstop. At one point in time, there were 14 of us living in a four-room house. My Aunt Marie, because there were so many children that had to be fed, would count out everything for everybody. But that was to make sure that everybody got something to eat. There was never a day that I came home from school that my grandmother did not have something cooking for us. I didn't know I was poor until I was a college student. That's when I found out I was poor. The professor was saying that Somerset County had the worst poverty rate in the state of Maryland. And I said to myself, when was I ever poor? I always had a house to live in. I always had food to eat. I always had clothes to wear. My mother was an unwed mother. At the age of 16, I was born. My father was 18. And for a few months, everything was okay with them. And then things changed. My mother never did talk about him. Uh, she, for some reason, never shared that information with me. She took that to her grave. My mother died when she was 36. So for a period of time from the ages till I was about 5, my mother took care of me. And then she decided that she wanted to move away. And she left me there with my grandmother. The earliest memory I have of a really meaningful relationship with her, I think I was about 7, and she had been home to visit and was getting ready to leave again. And at this point, I realized that she's really my mother. And so when she got ready to leave, I started crying because then I wanted to go with her. And she was upset because I was crying. And she said, I just can't leave my daughter here like this. And my grandmother said, you will be okay. And when my grandmother said that, I said, okay, I'll be okay. But I never really had a close relationship with my mother. And so that's why it was important to me when I had my daughter to want a close relationship with her. But the conversation with him happened when I was a teenager. So I'd heard that he was in town at my grandmother's house, and I had been going there all the time. And so I stopped by, and I said, when I walked in, he was sitting there on the sofa. He looked at me, and I looked at him. He never said a word. So I said, hi, being hopeful. Now here's my dad at last, and we can have a conversation. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me and then dropped his head. The next time I saw my father, he was 94 years old. I found out that he was in a nursing home in Flourtown, Pennsylvania. Being me, I said, Why do I need to contact him? He's had nothing to do with me all my life. And here I am. At the time, I think I was 77, 78 or something like that, maybe. And so I said, forget him. He forgot me. See? But then something happened. The Christ in me said, go talk to him. He was 96. And this time we had a conversation. And so the first question I asked him was, are you my father? Because it was inconceivable to me to think that this man was my father, and all these years we had had no contact at all. I said, because you missed out on so much. I said, I've got 3 wonderful kids. I've got all of these grandchildren that you don't even know. And he didn't say a word. When I asked him about the relationship, he didn't have an answer for me. He simply said, things change. And that was the last thing I said to him is, would you like to have prayer? And he looked at me and he reached for my hand and he said, yes, pray for me. And after I prayed, I left. And I never saw him again. The one thing I did know for certainty was that whenever I had children, they were going to have 2 parents in the home. They were going to have a mother and a father because I felt the extreme need to have a father. My early childhood teachers made me think about being a teacher because I saw the teacher as being someone respected in the community, someone who dressed well, someone that lived in a nice house, someone who was outgoing and confident, and I wanted all those things for myself. And my grandmother said, the only way that you're going to get that is if you get a good education. That was my dream. And then after I got married and had 2 kids, and my grandmother was watching them for me, she looked at me and she asked me one question. She said, what happened to your dream? And it caught me off. And I thought about it. And on the way home, Winch said, what was your dream? And all of a sudden I started crying. And I told him what my dream was, to go to college. He said, well, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen for you. And he did. And he did. That was my first year in college. That's what that was.
That's beautiful.
Thanks. Went was a pitcher on a baseball team. And on Sunday afternoons, we didn't have too much to do. And so we had all of these baseball teams that were playing at Westover at the ball field. He came up to me. He had 2 cups and a can of beer. And he looked at me. I didn't realize he was talking to me at first. He said, would you like to share this beer with me? I thought he was talking to one of the other girls, so I kept right on talking. And my girlfriend did me like this. She said, he's talking to you. I said, he's talking to me? Okay, he's talking to me. So I said, sure. I never had a beer in my life. So now I'm working during the summers in the crab houses. So one of my friends is sitting there with me, and she says, your grandmother thinks you like, and she named this guy. I said, no, I don't like that guy. I said, I like the guy that goes around with him. And she said, you like him? I said, yeah, I do. What I didn't know was that she was going to go and tell him that I said I liked him. Her name was Helen Stewart. She went and told Went that I said I liked him. And that's when he came to the house to see me. He was an excellent father to his kids. They wanted for nothing. I never dreamed of grandchildren or great-grandchildren. This is marvelous. This is exciting. This is a wonderful time. And I only wish Went could be here to be a part of it. That's the only sad thing when I think about it. 'Cause I know he enjoyed his grandkids. And I know he would be super awesome, excited about great-grandkids. He really would be.
Because we're just going to do some rapid fire
Mm-hmm.
memory things here. Favorite memory with your kids? Mike, Mark, and Tracy.
Christmas was always fun. And Went loved to decorate, so it was good. It was family time. It was a wonderful time because he was always working on the lights and I was always working on the ornaments and we were always doing this thing together. And it was just awesome to see their faces in the morning when they saw their gifts.
Favorite memory from your marriage?
When we went to Hawaii, that was our last trip together. This was our trip to Hawaii. So that's a favorite memory.
Most memorable memory with your grandma?
The crab knife that she gave me. I still have it. After all these years, I still have it. When I look back over my life and I see how far the Lord has brought me, I thank God for my foundation in Him. That I didn't even realize it was a foundation, but it was my grandmother's influence that kept me grounded.